Hello, manic.mercurian here, and today I wanted to talk about the compatibility of Scorpio with each and every one of the 12 signs. Now, this is part of a series, so if you were interested in looking up a different sign, like your moon sign or rising sign, and in addition to your sun sign, like I kind of recommend, you can do that if you'd like, and I will include the link up top as well as in the description box below. And then you can also check out this video I made that I intended for you to watch before this compatibility series, just because it just goes over some kind of basic stuff, like for instance, people aren't just their sun sign. You have to take into account the other signs in their chart to, for this information to really be correct, or to apply it as advantageously as possible. And then of course also I think the dynamic is going to be different depending on, are we talking about friend compatibility or something deeper, more romantic, etc. So but yeah, without further ado, let's get into the compatibility here. So first, just generally speaking with Scorpio, I think the most notable trait of Scorpio, especially when we're talking about compatibility, is their emotional depth. This is the most most emotionally intense sign, I would say. I think that it's generally regarded as such. And of course, when you're dealing with compatibility with Scorpio, there's much more detail and nuance that we need to take into account. But that simple fact that, this is maybe the most intense sign emotionally, that is kind of the most defining characteristic, I think. So Scorpio is going to want someone that it can be loyal to, that it can really kind of cling on to, because Scorpio is very possessive, I would say. It wants consistency, it wants stability. So, Scorpio already feels so emotionally deep and intense inside itself that, if it's with another sign that's very dramatic or unstable, then this is just going to get way too out of hand. Scorpio wants someone that can rely on, someone who's going to be loyal and faithful to them, someone that can give them security, I think. But yeah, let's get into it and see how each of the sign works with Scorpio. So we start out with Aries and Scorpio. Aries is 5 signs away from Scorpio, so these are quincunx. This is sort of a tense, awkward kind of aspect. These signs have very little in common. Aries is cardinal fire, Scorpio is fixed water, Aries is yang, Scorpio is yin. However, they are both ruled by Mars, so with both Aries and Scorpio, they both deal with this kind of fighting, competitive nature of Mars. So these are 2 signs that are very competitive, they're very fierce, they're very fiery. Scorpio is, of course, a water sign, but being ruled by Mars, it does have that fiery nature to it. Scorpio is very passionate. So they have these things in common. I think they could maybe be good friends, or, especially if they're competing, if they're doing something athletic together, or these are also both very creative, passionate signs. So maybe if something artistic brings them together, like these can be 2 really great performing signs. There could be a lot of shared interests, or methods of self-expression, or methods of releasing physical energy. A lot of things like that, I think, could maybe bring these signs together, and they could be good friends, or teammates, or they could be rivals, so to speak, each being so competitive with one another. So I mean, I could see that kind of bringing these signs together. But otherwise, if we're talking about more of a casual friendship or romantic relationship, I think there's just going to be too much different, really. The only commonalities here are the fierceness and the competitive nature. So those aren't necessarily traits that make the compatibility easier. It would make them more, each of these signs is kind of fiercely independent. So, I could see maybe some kind of interesting interactions really between these, but especially just maintaining something that's sustainable, something that can be more casual and relaxed as a relationship. I don't see that really happening between these 2 signs. Okay, next we have Taurus and Scorpio. These signs are exactly opposite one another. So they do have a lot, surprisingly, in common, but also a lot of differences as well. I think the main difference here is that Taurus has a very easygoing, laid-back attitude. Taurus can be a little bit carefree, a little bit, maybe slightly complacent. It's it's an earth sign, so it does have a good work ethic, generally speaking, but it can also be a little bit on the complacent side. Scorpio is very different. Scorpio is not necessarily laid back. It's more, on a survival mentality. It's constantly fixing and improving and working. It's very ambitious. It's constantly, looking at the glass half empty, looking for something to fix or a problem to solve or fixate on. So I think this difference could make or break the relationship. If Taurus and Scorpio are both very mature, maybe a little bit later in life, they're both experienced, and if these people are very whole within themselves, then I think that they can, overlook their differences or maybe even capitalize on each other's differences and work as a really excellent team. Both of these are fixed signs, so they both want, consistency. They want loyalty. They are more committed, kind of possessive signs. So I could see that working as well. This would be kind of an opposites attract. Each one could benefit the other, kind of balance the other a little bit. Scorpio could bring some spark and a little bit of drama and flair into the mix, and then Taurus would be very grounding for Scorpio. So there's a lot working kind of on either side of this dynamic. If I have to just simplify it and say yes or no, it's going to be a yes from me. Like I said, there are definitely some caveats, but as long as these signs are willing to kind of understand each other, yes, they are both fixed. They can be a little bit stubborn, but they're both strong-willed, and I think that they can, at the very least, respect that in the other. So I do see this as potentially being really great. Next, we have Gemini and Scorpio. These signs are 5 away again, kind of like with Aries, but unlike with Aries, we don't have the shared planetary rulership here. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, so there's just not a lot in common here at all. I think the main difference here is that Gemini is so light and breezy, it's kind of carefree, it's like dabbling with everything. And Scorpio is much more intense, much more focused. Scorpio wants commitment, it's more possessive. Gemini is not possessive at all. Gemini is more experimental, it's over here, it's over there. So these signs, like the whole style and the desires and the motivations of each of these signs is just so different. It's different in a way that I don't think would be especially interesting to either sign. Gemini will think that Scorpio is too uptight, takes things too seriously, is too emotionally intense about things. And Scorpio, I think, would be confused or annoyed by Gemini and how Gemini doesn't take anything seriously, and it doesn't really commit. It doesn't have that emotional depth like Scorpio does. So I really just don't see this working at all. There's nothing in common. There's no motivation, pushing these signs to overcome their differences. However, I can always find similarities between even the most different signs. One of the only things I can see with both of these signs is that they do have superior analytical ability or ability figuring out things. These are two kind of curious signs that want to figure things out and really understand things. These signs can both be skilled with like psychology or understanding complex concepts in general, like psychology being one of them. So I could see them being maybe fixated or interested in each other. They're both very cunning signs, but that's really, a stretch. That's all I can find to connect these signs. Other than that, there's really just not much in common at all. I just don't see either of these signs being truly interested in the other unless there's something else going on in their charts. Okay, next is Scorpio and Cancer. These signs are 4 away, so they make that trine. They're both water signs, so this is going to work much more easily than any sign we've covered so far. We don't necessarily have the opposites attract theme or thing going on that we did with Taurus. Cancer and Scorpio are more just very similar. They're both water signs. Cancer is the crab, Scorpio is the scorpion. So these are two invertebrates. They have that hard, tough exterior, that hard shell with the soft inside. So going along with that analogy, both Cancer and Scorpio can be a little bit rugged or tough. They have that surface layer that's like, don't mess with me. But deep down, they're kind of softies. You know what I mean? They're emotional. They're sensitive. Both these signs want someone to commit to. Cancer is not a fixed sign, but it does want consistency. It does want to commit. Both these signs are very emotional, and so they both want security. And then also that softness, to expand on that for a moment, both these signs could be maybe a little bit clingy, or, they want that closeness with one another, especially with a romantic relationship. So I do see this working really well. These signs would be very good friends, generally speaking. So whether that's just friends or whether it's more than friends, either way, there's at least some element of friendship there, which can be really useful. They just generally have so much in common that relating to each other will be very easy. They can understand each other well. So all in all, yes, this is kind of a no-brainer. These would work very well together. Next, we have Leo with Scorpio. These signs are 3 away, so they make a square to one another. Whenever you have signs that square each other, they will have the same mode, but a different element. In this case, Leo is fixed fire, Scorpio is fixed water. This is, to me, it's one of the most interesting pairings between two signs involving Scorpio. The reason why I say that is because, like, on the surface level, they're very, very different. They have a lot of differences, I think maybe one of the main differences is that Leo is such an upbeat, kind of carefree sign. It just wants to have fun and enjoy itself in the moment. And Scorpio is not upbeat. Scorpio is more pessimistic. Like I said, it's looking at the glass half empty. It's looking for a problem to solve or something to fix. It's in more of a survival mentality. So this difference, I think, could result in a lot of misunderstandings. They just have very different approaches. What else? Let's talk more about the differences. So they don't have a lot in common. Leo's also ruled by the Sun, which is a benefic, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is a malefic. So again, it's like Leo is just such an optimistic sign, and Scorpio is more pessimistic or a realist at best, or at most positive. So there's a lot of differences. One reason why I think they may sometimes be attracted to each other, though, is because Scorpio, especially at first, can very much come across as a fire sign. I've actually mistaken many Scorpio suns for Leos. I guessed that they were Leo when they were actually Scorpio because, like I say, Scorpio, although it's a water sign, it comes across very fiery, being ruled by Mars. So Scorpio does have that fierce, that warmth and that passion, that that strong self-expression and the strong-willed nature in general. So I think maybe meeting each other, Leo and Scorpio can maybe think that they have more in common than they actually do, and they will both feed off of each other's intensity. These are both, very intense signs. They're both very strong-willed signs. So I think that, they both have a certain magnetism where they may be attracted to one another, especially like sexually or romantically maybe. The problem is that once they become more involved, it can be very dysfunctional. Both these signs do not really, they don't really bend at all, or they're very stubborn. Like, they're not so good with compromise. And so when a disagreement happens between these two signs, and generally it always will since they're so different deep down, neither of these signs will want to compromise. Neither of these signs will want to, like, lose, so to speak. So that's where you can get these really intense, dramatic fights. But then it can just continue because neither of these signs will want to end the relationship. Both are very, fixed. They're possessive. They're committed. So as dysfunctional as it can be, they won't want to let go. Also, being so fierce and fiery, this connection between Leo and Scorpio can be very sexual as well. So very up and down, tumultuous. A lot of highs and lows, maybe magical romantic moments or good sex or what have you, but then also some really dark moments as well. So I could see why these signs would get together. I could see why these signs wouldn't want to break up, so to speak. But to me, this is very dysfunctional. I would approach it with caution. There's got to be a lot of stuff going on in the rest of the charts to make up for this very contentious, harsh, volatile connection here. Okay, so switching gears, we move from Leo to Virgo. Now we are 2 signs away again. Virgo makes a sextile to Scorpio. You can see that their glyphs are very similar. They both look kind of like our modern letter M. And that's to signify they do have a lot in common. Both of these signs are kind of pessimistic, I would say. They're both constantly preparing and organizing and working toward the future. So they can both be a little bit neurotic, I would say. No judgment, of course, but let's be real here. Also, we have, we're mixing earth with water, so they complement each other nicely. I think, Virgo likes routine. It's very pragmatic. It's very down to earth. And all of these traits, all of these earthy traits are very reassuring to Scorpio. Scorpio feels safe. It feels comfortable. You know, Scorpio can definitely handle a lot of complexity, which it would get with Virgo. But it would also, you know, it would thrive with the stability that Virgo brings. So I think Virgo actually, now that I think about it, it really satisfies these two very different needs that Scorpio has. Scorpio wants someone reliable, straightforward, practical, reliable. I already said that. Consistent, but it also wants someone complex. And what better sign to have both of those than Virgo? Um, you know, Virgo is just as reliable as another Earth sign like Taurus or Capricorn, but I think being an intellectual sign, it's much more complex and nuanced, and I think that could be maybe very interesting and captivating for Scorpio. And likewise, Scorpio is a water sign. It is very nurturing, and the earth signs, Virgo included, just soak up that watery energy. Um, you know, as detached as they might seem, Virgos do, you know, soak up that nurturing kind of watery influence of Scorpio. So this connection is very beautiful. This is a known, you know, especially beautiful connection. Um, so yes, I think this could work very well. The only kind of downside or warning I would think of would be, you know, these signs can be kind of intense. Virgos, I don't know if they're thought of as intense, but they definitely can be, and they both are, you know, can really fixate on things, and they both can be, you know, a little bit more negative on the negative side of things, I think. So, you know, they might, if anything, they may be like too similar. Um, that's the only thing I can think of. But otherwise, this is a really beautiful connection. They have enough in common to relate to each other easily, understand each other well, but enough different that they both bring something unique to the table and can benefit one another. Okay, next we have Libra with Scorpio. These signs are right side by side, and right off the bat, I mean, I really don't see this working. It's a lot like Gemini. You know, we talked about Gemini before. Libra's another air sign. Uh, and when you're mixing an air sign with Scorpio, these air signs, especially Libra, actually, you know, Libra's very detached. It's probably the least emotional sign, I would say. And Scorpio is one of the most emotional signs, and it's known for that emotional intensity. So they're just not going to relate at all. The detachedness of Libra would be a turnoff to Scorpio, but the emotional depth and intensity of Scorpio would be a turnoff to Libra, just the same. So that, I really don't see that working a lot. These signs are very complex. They have layers, so there is that commonality. But with Libra, again, it's more cerebral energy. It's mental layers. With Scorpio, it's much more emotional. Both are socially intelligent, but the way they apply that, and even the social intelligence itself, is just very different. So really, I just don't see this working at all. I think Libra's up there, in my opinion, for Scorpio for one of the least compatible signs. Probably Gemini and Libra so far, I would say, are least compatible with Scorpio. Okay, now we have Scorpio with its own sign. Um, and of course, you know, when you're combining any sign with itself, of course, there's going to be tons, you know, in common. It's going to be easy to relate to that sign. It's going to be easy to cultivate mutual understanding, and there's not going to be a need for a whole lot of compromise. So all of that makes things really easy. I especially like, you know, mixing signs with similar energies to themselves, or even the same energy. I especially like that dynamic for friendships more so. With relationships, I'm more looking for one sign to have, you know, be combining with something a little bit different to bring something else to the table. But yeah, Scorpio with another Scorpio, great for friends. And you know, all that I just said is usually true for each sign, but not every sign works well with itself. Some do more than others. With Scorpio, I could see a romantic relationship happening between two Scorpios. Both, you know, Scorpio just has such unrivaled emotional depth and complexity. And so, you know, if it is seeking that in someone else, it may not find that really, you know, in another sign. So both could also enjoy a little bit of predictability in, you know, being with another sign like yourself, because again, Scorpio is looking for stability. It wants consistency. It wants complexity, but it also wants some, I don't know, consistency, or it wants a little bit of predictability. I guess. So it could definitely get that, being with its own sign. So in short, I do think this would work, especially for friends, maybe even for more than that as well. Okay, now we're mixing Scorpio with the other sign next door, which is Sagittarius, and this gets really interesting. At first glance, it seems like these signs don't have anything in common, but when you look a little bit deeper, they actually kind of do. We'll start with the differences first. So, being signs that are side by side, of course, these really don't have much in common at all. Scorpio is, I think, Scorpio is it's such a more pessimistic energy, very, cunning and ambitious. Sagittarius can be cunning or ambitious, but Sagittarius is such a happy-go-lucky energy. It's more of an energy of celebration. So they're really very different. Sagittarius is expanding. It's all about abundance, and Scorpio is more about dealing with limited resources and how can we make the most out of this? How can we plan and organize, or how can we kind of survive? It's more of a survival mentality, where Sagittarius is, more like eat, drink, and be merry. So I think this would really be contentious, especially romantically. They would just have such different attitudes when it comes to work and money and even relationships in general. Now Sagittarius, it kind of depends. Earlier in life, Sagittarius is especially more of a party animal, and it really doesn't want to settle down. It more wants to experiment and see what's out there. But later in life, Sagittarius does typically want to settle down. Actually, I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it's true. Sagittarius does want to commit to that one kind of special person and go all the way. That's why you have the bow and arrow of the archer of the Sagittarius, shooting. It wants depth. It wants to go all the way. So that's where we actually strike some commonalities to Scorpio. Scorpio is also about depth. Both of these signs do everything 0 or 100. It's all or nothing. These are both very soulful, passionate energies. So we do have some kind of striking similarities more than what immediately meets the eye. I think this connection could be maybe interesting, maybe romantically or sexually, but I think Scorpio would mostly feel threatened or maybe just annoyed by Sagittarius's recklessness or its wide range. Sagittarius wants to, adventure and just explore all these different things, and it's very rowdy at times. And Scorpio, I mean, it could desire some kind of complexity, but I think for the most part it would just be turned off by this rowdiness and this recklessness or this lack of care. Scorpio is a much more focused, decisive, strategic sign. So all in all, I mean, there are some really interesting differences. I think they could actually make really great competitors or maybe good friends. But especially for these deeper relationships, I don't see it working. There's too many differences, and there's not the motivation to overcome those differences. So some interesting caveats, some interesting connections, but all in all, I would have to say no, this wouldn't really work super well. Okay, now we are at Capricorn. Capricorn, again, is 2 signs away from Scorpio, kind of like Virgo was. Also like Virgo, Capricorn's an earth sign. So these signs are going to work very well together. I think Scorpio and Capricorn have a lot in common. I think Capricorn actually probably has more in common with Scorpio than any other sign. I know most astrologers would say Virgo would be having the most in common, but I would say Capricorn. Both Scorpio and Capricorn are very ambitious, very strategic, very serious. They're thinking about the long term, thinking about the future. They both have an intensity to them as well. Capricorn is known to be very practical, very pragmatic, but Capricorn has a fiery side as well, just like Scorpio does. I know neither of these signs are technically fire signs, but there is a Mars connection to both of these. Mars is in domicile in Scorpio, and it's exalted in Capricorn. And you don't have to know a lot about astrology to know this. If you piss off a Scorpio or a Capricorn, they're going to have the same kind of fierce resilience of, they go into just all fire, fight or flight. I don't know how to explain it, and it's not something I want to glorify at all, but they do have this fiery competitive edge to them. So all in all, there's a lot in common here. I think they could make really excellent friends. both are very private, and so I mean, on the one hand, both being so private could maybe delay the relationship growing deeper because neither of these signs is particularly trusting of other people. They're more skeptical, very strategic with what they present with themselves. They're very cautious to share any information about themselves, especially emotionally or any kind of emotions or goals that either of these signs have. They're very private about. So on the one hand, that could slow down the development of the relationship a little bit, but on the other hand, it could speed things up too, because if both signs realize that they have that in common, they could be a little bit more willing to let the walls down with one another and maybe be on the same team in some capacity. So I see this working very well, especially for friends, maybe for something more. I feel like if these two signs have a really close relationship, it could be romantic, but I almost see these signs as building an empire together. So whether that empire is a family or a business or, I don't know what it is, but I think these signs would be great kind of teammates, so to speak. So, kind of take that how you will. But yeah, all in all, I would say this is one of the most compatible matches for Scorpio for sure. Now we have Scorpio with Aquarius. This is a little different. So Aquarius, again, is 3 signs away from Scorpio, so they make a square to one another. This is a harsh aspect, or contentious is the other word I always use for these square aspects. Scorpio is fixed water. Aquarius is fixed air. Aquarius does have a connection to water. It's Aquarius. It's the water bearer. But in terms of, having these two people interact together that have, these signs, they're not going to have a lot in common at all. The water connection with Aquarius is mostly like conceptual, or it's abstract. It's more having to do with the themes that Aquarius is dealing with. It doesn't necessarily mean that Aquarius is going to be emotional like Scorpio at all. Aquarius is air. It's one of the least emotional signs. However, I do like this more than the other air signs. Gemini and Libra, I just really don't see having anything to work with Scorpio. I don't see it at all. Aquarius, I could see it working a little better. Now, don't get me wrong. I would still say no to this overall if I just have to give a simple yes or no. They're very, very different energies here. But the reason why I'm a little bit sympathetic to this is because both are fixed, and when you mix two fixed signs, they are both so strong-willed. They're both very stubborn, so they're probably not going to want to compromise on anything, but they will at least respect each other's strong-willed nature. They can typically at least see, we may not see eye to eye on this issue. We may be very different, but, I at least respect that, you are who you are and I am who I am, and we're both very transparent and raw about that. So, they have similar approaches with that kind of stuff. This connection can also be very sexual. I don't know. I don't know how this would work exactly, because Scorpio usually wants someone to really commit to. It doesn't want to be all out and about doing everything with everyone. It usually wants, depth. So it wants to find one person to commit to. So I would think more like an earth or water sign would typically go with Scorpio. However, if Scorpio does, for whatever reason, link up with Aquarius, this gets really wild. There's a Uranian connection here. Uranus is in domicile in Aquarius, and it's exalted in Scorpio. So both of these signs are very provocative. They're very wild. They're dealing with, counterculture movements, or they're dealing with, these are kind of like the weirdos of the zodiac. And I say that with no judgment whatsoever. To me, weirdo is not a negative word. To me, it's neutral. But these are like the outsiders of the zodiac. So they're dealing with, eccentricities and they may be thought of as unusual or bizarre by more normie type of energies. So they do have that in common. That could be enough for, the foundation of some kind of friendship or teamwork. But all in all, I still have to say no, just because, again, Scorpio is just such a sensitive sign, and we talked about how it's soft on the inside. It does want to be a little bit more clingy or more kind of touchy and close. Aquarius is not going to know what to do with that. Aquarius does not know how to handle, other people's emotions. It doesn't even know how to handle its own emotions, really. So I think that, really emotional nature of Scorpio is just going to freak out Aquarius. And then likewise, a Scorpio's not gonna feel comfortable. You know, there's nothing to cling on to, or you know, there's no um I almost said there's no substance with air. Not that the air signs don't have substance, they're very intellectually deep and all that. But from the perception of a Scorpio that's, you know, more emotional, there's nothing to cling on to in that regard, I guess is what I was saying. So long story short, that's a little bit rambly. Scorpio and Aquarius is really interesting to think about. You know, there are some very interesting connections that we can draw there. Maybe something to push them to being friends or more. But all in all, I'd say generally no, this doesn't usually work very well. Okay, and then lastly, we have Scorpio with Pisces. So this is the third water sign. We're mixing two water signs again. So these signs have a lot in common. They're both emotional, sensitive. They both have that kind of more clingy aspect or wanting that closeness to each other. So these would be really excellent friends. There's going to be some kind of friendship element there, probably. And this could apply to more than friends as well, maybe romantic or otherwise. You know, Pisces and Scorpio both deal with kind of mysteries or things that are hidden. They're both complex signs, especially emotionally complex. So they will recognize and I think enjoy that in one another. They have similar approaches. I think Pisces is more maybe transparent about its softness since it doesn't have that hard shell. It's more just kind of open, more wearing its heart on its sleeve, so to speak. So I think Pisces could actually help Scorpio open up very easily. And Scorpio is fixed, so it could maybe bring a little bit of structure to Pisces, which doesn't usually have it. So I really like this. There's tons in common, so this is going to be a really easy connection, but there's just enough different that it makes it kind of interesting, or, you know, there's some kind of complementary nature to this dynamic as well. So that's my take on the compatibility of Scorpio with all the 12 signs. Let me know if you enjoyed this. And yeah, check out the rest of this series as well. I'm also going to cover all 144 sun and moon combinations. I've done about 100 as I'm filming this in August of 2022, and I am going to do the rest of those. So I will link that above if you're interested in looking at those as well. But have a great day. I'll see you later.